Imagine the roar of war drums fading into the eerie silence of death. A battlefield soaked in blood. Amidst the chaos, a lone figure stands, a man who has conquered the unconquerable but now questions the very meaning of victory. This is the story of Emperor Ashoka, a man whose life was a journey from unrelenting ambition to profound transformation. A king whose legacy wasn't carved by the sword, but by compassion and wisdom. But to understand Ashoka's journey, we must travel back to a time when the Mauryan Empire was at its zenith, to a young prince who was destined to change the course of history. Ashoka's story begins in the grand corridors of Patliputra, the heart of the Mauryan Empire. Under Emperor Bindusara, the Mauryan dynasty was a powerhouse of wealth, knowledge, and military might. Bindusara, known as Amitragta, or slayer of enemies, was a formidable ruler. But for all his power, his court was a crucible of ambition and rivalry. Ashoka was born into this world of intrigue and expectation. As the son of Bindusara, he was one of many princes vying for favor and recognition. His mother, Subhadrangi, was a woman of modest origins, a contrast to the royal lineage of Bindusara's other queens. This made Ashoka's position in the hierarchy precarious. Even as a child, Ashoka displayed extraordinary skills. He was a natural warrior, quick with a sword and unflinching in the face of danger. But what set him apart was his mind. Ashoka was curious, constantly asking questions that others didn't dare to. This sharp intellect made him a favorite of his teachers, but also earned him the envy of his elder brothers, particularly Sushima, the crown prince. To prove his worth, young Ashoka was dispatched to Taxila, a province that had become a hotbed of rebellion. Taxila was no ordinary challenge. The people there resented Mauryan rule, and the rebellion had grown fierce. Sushima had failed to bring it under control, and Ashoka's appointment was as much a test as it was a punishment. Ashoka approached the rebellion not just with brute force, but with strategy. He studied the terrain, negotiated with local leaders, and struck swiftly where it hurt the most. Within months, Taxila was pacified. But Ashoka's success came at a cost. The brutality of the campaign earned him the nickname Chand Ashoka, Ashoka the Cruel. Yet, in the eyes of Bindusara, Ashoka had proven himself indispensable. Despite his victory, Ashoka's return to Patliputra was met with cold indifference from Sushima and the royal court. The seeds of enmity between the brothers had been sown. The Mauryan court was a stage for political drama. Ministers, generals, and even queens played their parts in the intricate game of power. Bindusara, though a powerful ruler, struggled to manage the ambitions of his many sons. Sushima, proud and entitled, believed the throne was his birthright. But Ashoka's growing popularity among the army and the people made him a threat. Rumors of Sushima plotting against Ashoka began to swirl. Subhadrangi, a wise and pragmatic woman, warned Ashoka to tread carefully. She reminded him that the path to power was not just about strength, but also about understanding people's hearts. A king, she said, must be more than a warrior. He must be a protector, a guide, and a servant to his people. These words stayed with Ashoka, even as he navigated the treacherous waters of the court. When Bindusara fell gravely ill, the empire plunged into uncertainty. The question of succession loomed large. Sushima, confident of his position, began consolidating power. But Ashoka, backed by key generals and ministers, challenged his claim. The struggle for the throne erupted into a brutal civil war. It was a conflict that tore the empire apart, pitting brother against brother. Ashoka's forces, though smaller, were disciplined and loyal. Sushima, on the other hand, relied on sheer numbers and brute force. The war culminated in a dramatic showdown. Legends say that Ashoka, in a moment of poetic justice, defeated Sushima in single combat. The once proud crown prince was defeated, and Ashoka claimed the throne of the Mauryan Empire. But the victory came at a cost. The civil war left the empire weakened, its people disillusioned. Ashoka, now emperor, faced the daunting task of rebuilding what had been broken. In the early years of his reign, Ashoka was a ruler driven by ambition. His first priority was to consolidate his power. Provinces that had been destabilized during the civil war were brought under control. Ashoka restructured the administration, appointing loyal governors and strengthening the military. Ashoka's vision was clear. The Mauryan Empire must expand. Under his rule, the empire grew to its largest extent, encompassing almost the entire Indian subcontinent. Yet, there remained one holdout, a small but proud kingdom on the eastern coast, Kalinga. Kalinga was more than just a strategic conquest. It was a kingdom that symbolized defiance. For years, Kalinga had resisted Mauryan influence, maintaining its independence against all odds. The Kalinga War was one of the bloodiest conflicts in Indian history. Ashoka's army, vast and disciplined, faced fierce resistance from the warriors of Kalinga. The battle raged for days, leaving tens of thousands dead. When the dust settled, Kalinga was conquered. But the sight of the battlefield, the countless corpses, the wailing of widows, the orphan children, shook Ashoka to his core. This was not the victory he had envisioned. It was here, by the blood-red waters of the Daya river, that Ashoka experienced his moment of transformation. The man who had once sought power at any cost now questioned the very purpose of his life. Ashoka's transformation didn't happen overnight. It was a gradual process, marked by deep introspection and learning. He turned to Buddhism, seeking guidance from monks and scholars. The teachings of the Buddha resonated deeply with him, offering a path to peace and enlightenment. Ashoka began spreading his message through edicts, inscribed on pillars and rocks across the empire. These edicts spoke of compassion, tolerance, and non-violence. They urged people to live in harmony, regardless of their faith or background. Ashoka's reign became a beacon of prosperity and progress. He built hospitals, planted trees along roads, and constructed rest houses for travelers. He sent emissaries to far-off lands, spreading the teachings of Buddhism to regions as distant as Sri Lanka and Central Asia. In his final days, Ashoka was no longer the fierce warrior who had once struck terror into the hearts of his enemies. He was a ruler who had found peace within himself and shared it with his people. Ashoka's story is one of redemption. It's a reminder that even the most ambitious and powerful can find meaning beyond conquest. His legacy endures, not just in the annals of history, but in the principles that continue to guide humanity.